Hey my dear friends, Sam Haymart with Test Driven TV. Today we're test driving the 2021 Hyundai Elantra Hybrid. Very artistic, but great gas mileage. So I'm going to show it to you inside and out. We're going to take it for a drive, and then I'm going to tell you what I really think. Before we get out on the test drive, let's talk about what we've got here. This is the 2021 Hyundai Elantra Limited, and this is a hybrid model. The hybrid comes in two different models. You can get the base model, which is called Blue. That starts out around $24,000. And this one, the Limited, is priced at about $29,000 and some change, as you can see right there. The big thing about this car that really has to be put out there right here at the front is design. I mean, look at this thing. There is a lot going on here. And every time I talk about a Hyundai of late, the word origami comes up. And that's because when you really look at the shapes and the creases and the way this thing's formed and conceived up front, well, everywhere on the car, you've got triangular origami-like folds and shapes that really play into a lot of design panache. The grille on this has this beautiful black chrome finish that's also duplicated down in the lower fascia in that trim. You know, my only concern there is what is that going to look like in a few years after you get some pitting and some rock chips and things like that? Is that still going to be smooth and shiny like that? But today, I think it looks great. The headlights on this are LED, and the daytime running light signatures, if you look at that, they have sort of a bird wing, phoenix rising sort of shape that wraps around into the fender and the hood line. Wheels on this one are 17-inch wheels. If you go up to the Limited, you do get these larger wheels. If you stick with the Blue base model, you have 16-inch alloys. Coming down the side, you can see how these origami-like shapes really play into the side and give it a lot of drama. A very triangular shape, and right here in the center where these three planes come together, that's actually quite a challenge when it comes to stamping metal. Hyundai actually made a pretty big story about that when this car came out. But look back here in the C-pillar, the way these shapes fold together and create a three-dimensional effect as we go back into the deck lid. There's a lot of complexity there design-wise. LED taillights fold into all that quite well, and when we go down to the lower fascia, you can see that we don't have any exhaust tips or any kind of design that really tells the story of a gasoline engine. This is a hybrid, so they're really sort of trying to downplay that. The interior of the Hyundai Elantra Hybrid is a place that I really like. I liked it when I tested the gas model. This is a design that is very elegant, and especially with the materials they've got here. I like the denim material that you see here on the door panels, and it's also over here on the seats. It's just a really nice look, but this is just a nice sweeping design that comes around, and in this color combination, you'll note that the gray actually just wraps around the driver in sort of a cockpit form, and then it becomes black as it wraps over there. These seats are both heated and ventilated. I found them very comfortable. The center stack is very well laid out. It's got hard controls up here for the infotainment system. Climate controls are down here, and then down below, this has a wireless phone charger and a nice place to put your phone along with all of the ports. Here you have the drive mode buttons and a conventional shifter, not always found in hybrid cars. Cup holders. Now this has got an interesting little device here that you can turn around and set it down low for big cups, or you can set it up high for things like soda cans and things like that. Then here you have your console storage. Inside there, about one Kleenex box worth of storage. The steering wheel has a really interesting design. I think it's rather artistic. Nice switches here for audio controls and for the instrument cluster. And the instrument cluster, nice 12.3-inch screen, and that's totally customizable depending on what you do with your drive modes. And you can also set some other themes and settings on that. And then, of course, the screen for the infotainment system. I really like the design in here. I think it's very nice to look at. I will point out that these are all hard plastics virtually everywhere you touch, but that does go to the price of this car. Here in the back seat, this is actually a pretty comfortable place. I have plenty of legroom, as you can see down here, and the seating height is actually pretty good. Headroom, very good. The one thing I would point out is I don't have vents back here, and the trunk is actually pretty large. Underneath that floor is a spare tire, very good. These seats fold down in a 60-40 split, as you'd expect, to give you a little bit more area to do longer things in through the trunk. For the most part, I'm very impressed with this interior. The hard plastics are the only area where I could complain, but at this price point, I think we're good. It's very well designed. The quality of the switchgear is very good. It's comfortable, and it's a place that I think really is elevated over some of the competitors at this price. This interior gets 5 out of 5 stars. This infotainment system is a system that I've talked about in other Hyundai cars. It has a nice big screen, 12.3 inches. As you can see, there's a little bit of glare there. But my really only big complaint about this is the fact that every time you start the car up, it starts at this home screen. If you want to see your stations, you actually have to go tell it to do that. And it's just annoying. But when you do get there, I like this little vacuum tube kind of design that it has for the stations. And it is fully featured with a backup camera, Android Auto, and Apple CarPlay, but not wireless here. A very cool thing this has is the sounds of nature. And you can put it on Seaways. That's one of my favorite ones here. Isn't that cool? It's nice to be able to just turn off the radio and the commercials and the news and all the things going on and just listen to some nice stuff to zen you out if you've had a stressful day. I really do like that quite a bit. The sound quality here is very good. Really, the only thing missing is that wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Oddly enough, standard in the blue model. This infotainment system gets 4.5 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, so we're gonna go for a drive here. We're in downtown Phoenix. Sometimes I like to take a city drive. And so we'll start with talking about what's under the hood. This has a 1.6 liter naturally aspirated direct injected gasoline engine with a 6-speed dual clutch automatic transmission, a traditional type of transmission in the way it shifts. And between the engine and the transmission is a powerful electric motor, about 43 horsepower, that allows you to drive at pretty good speeds on electric power only. I've actually seen 45, 50, and even 55 miles an hour on EV power when the battery is good, and even on the freeway during coast, because it's just a very powerful motor, and the lithium-ion battery pack located under the rear seat is a pretty powerful battery. So if you watch my reviews, you know that the question I always like to ask is, how does it go? Here it's shifting gears. Yep. And 60. This is pretty quick for a little hybrid sedan. This engine revs freely. It's fun. It's got a nice sound to it. And with this 6-speed dual clutch automatic transmission, it feels like a normal car. It doesn't feel like a lot of hybrids which have that leaf blower effect when you really lean into the accelerator. And that's really one of the big benefits here, is the fact that this feels like a more traditional car to drive. Actually, that's one of the things I like about this powertrain the most. So even though it has only 139 horsepower, which doesn't sound like a lot, with the torque of the electric motor that this has, this car really has some scoot. That's an old person's word, scoot. That car's got some scoot. So I'm impressed. In my week with this, I got 53 miles to the gallon. Now it's rated at 49 city, 52 highway, and 50 combined, so I actually bettered that. So I'm very impressed with this powertrain. Powertrain gets 5 out of 5 stars. Now, I spent a lot of time driving this car around the city this week, and I found myself very impressed with this chassis, not only in its sporting feel, again, having a lot to do with these bigger wheels and tires that you do get on the Limited, but the chassis on this car is actually very well sorted. This has a McPherson strut front suspension and a multi-link rear suspension, which in this class is actually a bit of an upstep. There are a lot of cars that have gone backwards in technology and done a torsion beam axle in the back, which is a heavier, clunkier piece, and going over bumps around curves and things like that tends not to feel as precise and as refined. Here, they've actually given you the more expensive multi-link suspension, even in the hybrid. It's got sharp steering, it's got a nice taut feel, so it's sporting when it comes to turning corners and going around curves, but it's also quite solid. One of the things I found very impressive is the feeling of the brakes. A lot of hybrids have some very strange feeling brakes, but this one, even when you hit them hard or just driving around town, the modulation and the way they feel when you come to a stop is very natural. This is an electronic braking system, so that means that there's a lot of room for weirdness, and somehow they managed to tune this to not have weirdness. Another thing I like to test in the city are the speed humps. Now around Phoenix, these are ubiquitous on all of the residential streets, and these are these little mild speed bumps that, well, try to keep you at the speed limit, and going over them for me is a good way to see how well the suspension is tuned, because there's a lot of cars out there that, even though these are mild speed bumps, they really cause it to crash. So I like to go over them at the speed limit, which in this case is 25 miles an hour, and see how it goes. There is a little bit of a drop there, which means that they don't have the rebound tuning on these shocks as good as it could be. So what happens is when you go up, it's fine, but when you go over, the wheels drop down and crash just a little bit. So that's an area that they could do a little bit better on the tuning for this chassis. On the freeway, a very quiet ride, and again with the steering, that really comes into play with a nice tight direct feel on the steering. And with the sport mode, it actually dials that in a little sharper. It gives you a little bit more of an engaging feel. So I'm pretty impressed with this chassis overall. There are some areas of improvement, but overall it gets 4.5 out of 5 stars. Okay, my friends, now it's time to talk about value, because chances are if you're looking at this car, you're looking at a few others and you're really trying to see what you're going to get for your money and get the most, because that's just the name of the game when it comes to compact sedans, especially with a hybrid, right? So this is a car that I think is really a great value. I said that when we tested the gas model earlier this year. The features you get here for the money, the one price system that they've got, really makes it very competitive to cars like the Toyota Corolla Hybrid. If you get the same equipment or pretty close to it, you're going to be spending actually a little bit more in some cases with the Toyota. And this just offers some things that it doesn't. And 53 miles to the gallon, that's pretty hard to argue with, man. I got to tell you, I'm very impressed. And you get design here that you're not going to get in a lot of other places. You either love it or you hate it. Nonetheless, with the best warranty coverage in the business, 10 years, 100,000 miles powertrain, and that's even on the hybrid stuff, I think this is a great deal. 5 out of 5 stars for value. When you put that in with everything we've already talked about, this car comes in at 4.5 out of 5 stars. And you know what else? It goes on my buy it list. Yep. Just like the gas version we tested earlier this year, I'm just very impressed with this packaging, the overall deal here. It's just a very likable car. It's great to live with, and of course the MPG is hard to argue with. So there you go. I'd buy it. I totally would. So if you like the video you just saw, I invite you to see my latest one right there, or better yet, subscribe to my YouTube channel right down there. Either way, stay tuned.